Hey, I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films, and we're just a day or so away from Halloween. Now, I pointed this out before, but I do want to point out this Jekyll and Hyde sculpture I got here again. My friend Ron McClellan hooked me up with it last year. He sculpted it himself. It's quite awesome. But today we're going to talk about a recent Kino Lorber 4K release of a classic Halloween type of horror movie, even though it doesn't take place on Halloween, but it does have the universal type of monsters in it. We're talking about the Monster Squad, which is kind of like the Goonies meets the Universal Monsters, and the monsters included in the film are the creature from the Black Lagoon. Now this one is kind of plays a minor role. A Wolfman is also in it, playing a little bit larger role. Also, the Mummy in a minor-ish role. Frankenstein in a fairly major role played by Tom Noonan, and Dracula is the main villain. Now, like Van Helsing, it kind of has that same type of hierarchy with the monsters, where Dracula's in charge and Frankenstein's kind of like the good bad guy. So the film from 1987, which came out a little bit about a year after Goonies, so it's very suspicious. I'm sure that the pitch was, hey, I got an idea. It's the Goonies with the Universal Monsters. Now it is a little, I guess it is slightly leans more towards an adult themes than Goonies does. It also has some kind of a little bit of homophobic dated stuff going on, which you know, they're kids, and kids still do it today. They just don't do it in movies as much because now it's kind of, they don't want to encourage that type of bully type of mentality. But it also has, the monsters in this are not like Goosebumps. I guess Goosebumps could kind of lean towards some horrific things, but these monsters do kill people, and they have very bad intentions, and there's some parts in it that could kind of lean towards being somewhat scary and even gory, especially at some point the werewolf gets blown up, and he reattaches himself, but he gets blown up, and it's pretty it's a little gory, but it is a werewolf, so I guess it's a monster gore and not like human gore. Now, I do want to point out that Dracula here in this one, he doesn't have a sense of humor at all. He is like serious as a heart attack, and he can turn into a bat and do some other cool type of stuff. But for some reason, he, like later in the film, he resorts to using sticks of dynamite, like throwing sticks of dynamite at people. At one point, I think the kids go in there and mess up his house, and so he gets pissed off. So he goes back to their house and he blows up their treehouse with the dynamite. So it's that's, you know, he's gets really upset about these kids messing with his plan. I first saw this film when I was pretty young when I saw it, and I enjoyed it. I think it does have a nice aesthetic to it, from kind of late 80s aesthetic, kind of rolling into the 90s, but it still has an 80s type of mentality to it. The kids in it, they are aided by the adults, but the kids ultimately do, each of the monsters is ultimately kind of killed by one of the kids, even though the adults do aid them. There's a German guy who has to read some German type of scriptures type of stuff to open up this portal to get rid of the monsters, but he is aided by a little girl. And also, like, you know, most of the time, like, one of the kids will end up killing one of the monsters. The overall plot is the monsters have to get this amulet at a certain time on this day, at a certain time on a 100-year cycle. There's a little scene at the beginning where it takes place 100 years before, but I think it's every 100 years there's like this fight between good and evil, and whoever gets the amulet kind of is evil will reign if the monsters get it. Now Dracula is the one who's dominantly got a mind about himself. The rest of the creatures are very monstery and don't know what they're doing. They're just following Dracula. The Wolfman, as a human form, is a human, but when he's a wolf, he tends to follow Dracula in whatever he does. Frankenstein, he also brings him back, and he's supposed to be his big helper, but Frankenstein eventually becomes, like, he likes the kids, especially like the little girl, and he kind of becomes one of the Monster Squad gang, so it kind of backfires on Dracula a little bit. So it is a fun film. It is sometimes you got to kind of ask the question of who's exactly is it made for. Obviously it was made for maybe 13-year-old kids, but it also it could appeal to younger kids. I know I was younger when I first saw it, but it will appeal to younger kids as well, but it does have some things in it that it would probably go right over their heads, really, as I'm sure it did when I was younger. But there are some very adult themes in the film, and some of the monster stuff is more horrific than you would think. Kind of like if you're watching Ernest Scared Stupid, that thing is pretty scary for a kid's film. That one it really needs a 4K release, in my opinion. As far as the transfer here, this is a Kino Lorber 4K release, and I do have this Olive was it Olive Films release that came out before this. Before this was probably the best release. Now this one is very bare bones. This one has some special features on it, but the Olive release is not nearly as, it doesn't look nearly as good as this. Now, not that the Olive release, I did look back at it and I watched some scenes, just kind of compare. As with 4K, typically the darks are going to be deeper, darker black, and there's a lot more detail. And now at the beginning of it, when you first start watching it in 4K, the opening title, the logo and opening titles have some problems, and as they typically do in 4K, and a lot of times if they're not able to redo them because of it's just they don't upscale as well as some of the other the film. It's shot on film, but some of the other film stuff, it doesn't upscale as well. So at first you might think, oh, this doesn't look too good, but once you start seeing the actual scenes in the film, you'll realize how good it does look, and the monster makeup looks fairly excellent. So let's take a quick gander at the actual physical release and what we got. Now there is a slipcover version. Unfortunately, when I ordered it, I missed the slipcover, but it just happened that way, unfortunately. So there is a 4K version. There's actually 3 discs in here. There's a Monster Squad on Blu-ray, and there's also the Wolfman's Got Nards, which is like kind of a documentary about it. And I can confirm from watching the movie that the Wolfman does indeed have nards. As far as this film is concerned, I'm going to rate the film a 4. I'm going to rate the transfer a 4 as well. If I had a slipcover, I would probably go towards a 4. Without the 4, maybe 3.5 for the packaging. I do like the cover here. Now, I was going to take a look at the inside. Okay, now there is a reversible insert. Now this is the original cover. I remember seeing that in the video stores, and this must be an upgraded. It is a slightly better. It's a slightly better drawing than the original cover. Not that the original cover's horrible. I do like this artist rendition cover on the Olive Films, but I do like the newer one here. The Kino one is better to me. Anyway, let me know what you think about the film if you've seen it before, which you probably have. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. If you haven't done so already, if you like this video, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.